Hey, we're back. That was quick, and we're here.
That was shorter.
Hi,
everyone.
That was
Welcome
only
to
42
GotTherapy. I'm
minutes
Michael
long.
Baltimore. You probably hear some noise in the background.
That's really long intros, and I get what we call in the studio notes. You get a note on something, which really is kind of a
It's a criticism.
It's a criticism. Is what it is.
Yeah, that
But
note
that's
about
okay.
nudity. They were not allowed to do that
Well,
anymore.
there's a lot of notes flying around
Not
in the studio
a,
here. But ladies and gentlemen, we're back. This is GotTherapy, the Dan Rose Show. This, my friends in the audience, is Dr. Dan Rose, Counseling Center Director here at Columbus State University.
And I apologize ahead of time that I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I was telling you my kid had a sleepover.
Had a sleepover.
Had a sleepover, so I didn't get much sleep.
How old is your son?
47.
47. No, that's not true. He is 7.
He is 7 years old. My kid is 7, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And he had a sleepover. Also, his buddies came over.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Were you involved in that activity, or were you just sort of in the parent, hovering around as a parent, or were you engaged in the activity? Or
I occasionally hit someone with a stick. It was really my only duty was, you know.
That's not how.
Yeah.
That's not how things
Apparently,
are
his
supposed to be.
best friend is feral.
I'm going to ask Dr.
Feral. The kid's like, the kid can't speak. He bit me.
That's wrong. That is so wrong.
And the kid is.
I
His
want to
friend
ask
is.
Dr. Dan Quigley if he could come over and maybe help with the lighting over here for Dr. Rose on a couple of shots here. We're a little.
You look a little.
We've had some
little dark.
actually some bulbs go out, and we've ordered some bulbs.
Well, I would say that's the name of a fall song. No bulbs.
No bulbs. Well,
Yeah.
we're living that now. So today on this show, we talk about mental health issues. We talk about psychology.
Can we talk about the
a
fall?
number of
The
things.
Marquis Smith, the band. 30 studio albums. Over 30 studio albums. John Peel's favorite band.
30 albums.
30 studio albums.
33 albums. And have they made, I don't know, have they won awards for this album? Have we don't hear this on the radio and in different
That's because the
venues,
mainstream media just, well, they don't let you, they don't,
mainstream thing.
there are only certain things they let you know.
Yeah, I think, Daniel, I was asking about camera 2, I believe, over there. I think I'm looking okay right there, but or this one actually is the one we're talking about for Dr. Rose. So, all right, thank you very much. We got a little technical help.
Yeah.
This is live television.
People don't
We're
realize
working
this,
through
but Quigley has a new facial tattoo.
Oh, he
Yeah.
does.
It's a,
And
it's Diane Keaton.
it's
I've never really
Diane
seen a
Keaton. I don't think
tattoo
I've
of
ever
Diane
seen
Keaton, but it's pretty
actual-
good, pretty good.
Does he even know Diane Keaton? Does he know who you're talking about? All right, so, all right, we were talking before the show a couple of things that are politically connected with some unconscious kinds of processes. We want to get to that. I brought up the idea of narcissism.
Yeah, I think Ronald Reagan was unconscious for like at least the last term.
I think there's some people that hold Ronald Reagan up in very high esteem on a pedestal out there. But you know, California has turned out.
There are a lot of people who
governor
eat
says-
potted meat too. A lot of people enjoy potted meat.
It's hard.
And I'm just saying, there's a
there
place
you are.
for
So,
everybody.
Yeah, you're looking much better on that TV screen now. So I thank you. Thank you guys for the technical help as we start this show. So we're talking about narcissism earlier too. This notion that people are sort of very much centered on themselves.
They are.
And I was saying that I don't think narcissists actually come into therapy for treatment. So, agree or disagree? What do you think?
Anytime I enter the therapy room, there's a narcissist present. They may not be.
I wasn't talking about the therapist there. I was actually talking about clients. But I do totally understand your idea. There's no difference about that.
There's, I'm not sure if a full-fledged narcissist would make a. Actually, there have been at least several instances of some psychoanalysts. Masad Arkan is often was considered. Heinz Kohut, who wrote a great deal about narcissism, were often, you know, said it takes one to know one. They would say about the guy.
Yeah, it may be so.
Yeah.
Well, you know, if you look at the symptoms that these people display, it's a little hard to like the narcissist. They're very self-centered. Everything's about them. They're not really caring. There's not much empathy for others.
Well, here's the thing. One way to think about it, and when we talk about a narcissist, it's sort of like what one of the Supreme Court justices long ago said about pornography. I don't know what it is, but I know it is when I see it, right? So,
yes, absolutely.
So same with narcissist. There's this notion you have a.
Waving my hands here. I'm just still directing this show.
Yeah,
We're in
this
the middle of it. I got distracted, so I apologize. All right, repeat that again. Though. Come back so I can actually.
I said.
You were getting a haircut on the camera. I was just.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was like.
Yeah, that's where I was at.
Solid.
This is how it goes today. But I love this impromptu, unstructured a little bit.
Any minute, one of us could be bit by a rat. Like something's going to go wrong,
No, it's not that bad, but
it's like,
color correction is what we do around here. So yes.
In fact, this 2 words came to my mind.
Much better shot.
Chimpanzee and urine. I don't know why those two that just came in. I don't know what that.
I don't know what happened.
Just thought I would share that.
This is a free association, and it's a hallmark of.
It's not free, believe me. It's costing.
I don't think it's free either. It's just association. We need to talk about that some more too.
But when we talk about narcissists, it takes 2 people to make a narcissist. Oh. And what that means is that the narcissistic individual, if in a vacuum, if unimpacted by the environment, if they are not feeling some sort of relational impact, then they do not exhibit narcissistic behavior. Narcissistic behavior is a process that is the positive signs of narcissism are a direct defensive result, an attempt to be able to mediate the impact of the environment, particularly relational impact. Right. So, for instance, the narcissist is someone who begins to become grandiose. There's a swelling of the ego. That is usually a direct result of some sort of narcissistic impingement. They are feeling less than, and it can be an unconscious feeling of less than, and they reflexively move to a grandiose position. Like the pufferfish. And you can see it in the things they say, their tone of voice, and on the surface, it may seem simply like they're being a jerk. It may be simply say that they are full of themselves, but underneath it, there is an anxiety, a fear, a discomfort that is being masked and mediated by this blowfish behavior.
So there's really this low self-worth, low self-esteem that may be working in this environment, and it's always within the confines of at least two people.
And depending on the level of narcissism of someone who, and there are various forms, but it's those who are the lower functioning narcissists, they wouldn't be able to describe what they're experiencing as low sense of self or self-esteem. They're often reflexive. Mm-hmm. They are not conscious of what Coat would call annihilation anxiety. That when they really begin to feel the things that they're feeling, those feelings of worthlessness, they feel they're going to fly to pieces. This is something that they have to keep at bay through these relational activities.
So, and that's what they do to defend against that. Mm-hmm. They're self-important, center of the attention, mm-hmm.
Put
others at a distance from them, tend to focus.
And there's a form of narcissism called malignant narcissism.
Okay.
And malignant narcissism, and when Coat really had a good way of talking about this, to him, narcissists are guilty of using people as self-objects, as pseudopods. And they often, they're unable to relate to someone as, and there are healthy self-object relationships and unhealthy, but the narcissist is simply trapped in being able to use people as part objects. What they're looking for is your gaze, not your mind and your subjectivity, but it is a reflection from you. They want you to be a mirror to reflect a certain thing that will affirm them, that will shore up their sense of self. And there's a form of narcissism called malignant narcissism. And a malignant narcissist is an individual who can be almost predatory and exploitive in their use of others.
Okay.
So it's not just the sort of narcissist who needs to have their ego stroked or needs to be the center of attention, but this is the sort of person that often can be ruthless in their use of others.
These are beyond the normal. And this may be the personality disorder if you look at it from...
I was reading something about how, even serial killers could be, in some ways, could reflect a form of malignant narcissism. These are certainly bad people.
Sure.
So,
But you're going to reflect, and you said part object a minute ago. That's sort of the object relations definition of those kind of things, and that you don't see this person, so you don't really fully engage with the other person. It's just merely the tool to sort of reflect you back. Okay.
Yeah, I've been called that before.
Yes, I guess so, in some ways. But don't we all have some sense of narcissism? Isn't narcissism something? What
I liked about Kohut, talking about this guy, is he said that there's a healthy narcissism. He goes as far back as Freud talked about there's a need for some level of primary narcissism. But Kohut say that we have to maintain a narcissistic equilibrium. We've got to play a balance. So all of us, you know, there's a famous Oscar Wilde quote that when our friends become successful, a small part of us dies.
Interesting quote.
He was a funny guy.
Yeah.
But there's a Morrissey song, "We Hate It When Our Friends Become Successful." So there's a Morrissey.
There we go. We're talking about him again at another point.
If you were to and you could do this experiment, as you move throughout your day, allow yourself to sort of visualize your sense of self. And in the presence of certain people, you can feel the it tip in one direction. You can begin to feel, oh, maybe I'm not so cool, or maybe I'm not as successful as I'd hoped to be. In others' presence, in the presence of billboards, in the things on TV, you can experience narcissistic impingements. And so we all work in some form of fashion to be able to create an equilibrium.
To balance that out.
And so the problem with the narcissist is this equilibrium is so easily tipped, and it can swing into extremes. And so then it generates a reflexive behavior pattern to deal with the underlying affect. And so, but all of us have to mediate the impingements. I mean, if your best friend suddenly shows that they're getting married and they have a diamond, you know, the size of your toe,
right? You
know, on one level you're like happy for them, but you also feel a sense of envy. There is a flood of different, darker affective colorings that you experience as well, and some of us are more attuned to those, and we might be more affected by those darker hues. And when that happens, you know, you punch your friend. You say, well, "That's a nice ring, but it looks like you've gained weight." I mean, there are things that you do, you know, or in your head, you say things like, "Well, yeah, but you know, her husband has a funny mustache." So you do whatever to be able to mediate that impact.
To get yourself back up to that level in some way.
Get that
well, it sounds like, too, that the narcissist, and all of us, we have to, evidently there's a range or a continuum that we may find ourselves on, but it also sounds like they have to have the right person around them, maybe in their personal or marriage or couple relationship. We've got to find someone who is really going to allow them to be reflected. So well, two narcissists are not going to marry each other, I was thinking.
That would be interesting. And I think probably the reason why a lot of celebrity couples explode, because, you know, a narcissist,
that's an interesting idea.
Because, you know, there's a certain level of subservience you can get from another narcissist. There's a way in which they may fit together as a puzzle piece initially. But you're right, it doesn't, the center will not hold.
Right.
There's something
of sharing in that relationship and a give and take, and you know, sometimes you have tension, sometimes you give.
But that's how therapy works. Kohut, his theoretical model was self-psychology, and he thought that at the beginning of therapy, period, at first he said just with narcissists, but he began to make this sort of a broader way of dealing with therapy, that there needs to be initially lots and lots of reflection and mirroring. And that with a narcissist especially, you have to be able to act, and he even talk about it as the mirror transference. That at the beginning of work with a narcissist, as opposed to confrontation, which engenders that annihilation anxiety, which creates a narcissistic impingement. With narcissists, you do the opposite. You build them up, you reflect, and you clarify. And your first intervention is to begin to get them more and more in touch with their feelings. Because if they can begin to have some sort of unmediated connection to the things that they experience and feel, they don't have to move into those reflexive patterns.
Right, but they're defending against those feelings, I would assume, because they're just too tough. If they have to look at their own vulnerabilities and weaknesses and those kind of things, that's not for the narcissist. They're going to defend against that. And so the therapy would be to say, hey, let's talk about feelings. Let's kind of get to that feeling level.
I remember I had a patient that I saw a long time ago, and he was a narcissist.
There you go.
And he came in because he was not doing well in school. This was at a university not here but far away. And he would often begin the sessions by either reading directly from or talking about something in the Wall Street Journal. Sometimes he would literally open the paper, and his diatribes were often about how other people were stupid, and you know, how people who think differently than him were idiots, and there was this sort of continual. And if you were to just videotape that moment, you would see two people sitting in a room, and one person sort of in this grandiose space where the whole world is an idiot and they are not. But if you delve beneath the surface, what I think you would see, at least through Kohut's lens, is that you see another individual entering a space where they are in less control, my office, with someone who has higher education than they are. They are in the process of feeling as if it is slipping away from them. There are a series of impingements, the things in my office, the things that I am wearing, and they are literally being assailed. It is an emotional massacre, unconsciously for them. And so their actions on the surface seem like, you know, grandiosity, jerk, this guy's unpleasant. But what really is happening, and this is another individual, another human being, attempting not to be drowned by the horrible things that they're feeling.
That is a very interesting notion. I'm not sure a lot of people have ever heard that, that put in quite that reframe there.
But the Wall Street Journal?
The Wall Street Journal was an attempt by this client to exert his intelligence and then move into.
It was like a shield.
Down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
And if from a Kohutian perspective, and you'd mentioned earlier about how narcissists are hard to come to therapy and to keep in therapy. And what makes them hard to come to therapy is because, first off, it's on an unconscious level, it's a very scary and dangerous thing. On another level, it's very easy to screw up with them. And remember I said earlier, it takes two people to make a narcissist. My presence in that room was helping to co-create and generate his narcissistic behavior, his need for that defense. So what the initial stages of therapy are often being able to reflect back, yeah, you know, and in his case, it's been a long time, but I think being able to reflect back that, you know, you really know your stuff about the finances.
You're right about these
this
people.
You got, sounds like, and those moments of reflection, what can happen is the narcissistic defenses start to lower a bit. You create a space where this person doesn't have to be a narcissist to be able to stay in the room. And then you can get to a place over time, and sometimes this takes a while.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It might take quite a while to work.
To get them to be able to talk about what this underlying affect and feeling might be. You know? And you can see how a lot of traditional therapies may or may not work. Any sort of therapy that's focused on a directive treatment, for instance, could really not work so well for the narcissist. Anything that involves them,
cognitive behavioral plan.
That might, you know, that really might be difficult. This is often a long-term. It's often focused on again, initially building a relationship in a space that you could almost talk about it in terms of a corrective emotional experience in a way too. You're sort of in a way giving the individual something that they desperately need. And once they get it, you begin to get them to build something inside of themselves to where, and Kohut talked about that as well, that there's this, you know, and then object relations, internal objects. Most of us, if you could imagine, let's say your friend with the diamond ring. Part of the way in which you talk to yourself in the moment when they show you the ring, you don't say, well, hey, that's a nice ring. Have you gained weight? Usually, most of us don't do that. Most of us in our heads say, that's a nice ring. God. My ring's not, I didn't know, that's...
My ring's not.
You will attempt to be able to self-soothe and talk to yourself in a way because you have internalized certain things that you can pull from in those moments. The narcissist's inner world is often empty. It's often only a flood of feeling. There aren't other players they can pull from in their internal theater to be able to assist them with that balance. Therefore, they often reach outside of themselves and need this sort of these sort of pseudopods.
But it is pervasive too in those in all encounters with the narcissist. They're going to be true to that narcissistic theme almost in every situation.
They're going to feel the impact of the other and those impingements. And a narcissist can feel it, and we all can. When you turn on the TV, when the billboards staring down at you as you drive by, the magazines that stare at you, there are 1,000 mirrors that you pass through in the course of a day. And you have to find some way to mediate what's reflected back to you.
Right.
And the narcissist is sort of trapped, like you said, in this movement.
It's a very interesting idea. And so if we go, you talked about object relations. So this must have, this started, and you mentioned Freud before the show started, his view on this, but this was something that really begins at birth and in those early development stages, in those early months of life, that this type of thing develops. And I think we're also kind of pointing to the personality integration and the whole object, if you will, as opposed to part object.
Yeah, we all have to find a way to build some form, a way to mediate, to make that equilibrium. And our earliest experiences with Mom, our feeling of being valued and loved, and being valued and loved by both of our parents and the people around us, they sort of build that. We internalize that. Those are sort of the basic building blocks of a self.
And how about too much love? How about the parent who raises that child that they are always special and everything they do is wonderful, and just kind of get that feedback?
Well,
and can they create a narcissist?
Well, here's the catch with that, because we particularly look at the infant studies and attachment theory stuff. You know, oftentimes the parent who is, quote, overindulgent, it belies an anxious attachment on the parent's part. So the parent who is fawning and overinvested, if that is not love, that's not giving too much love. That is driven by fear. There is a hidden poison in that. It's not, and that's. I don't think it's possible to love your child too much. I don't think it's possible to poison or ruin your kid by caring too much. But you can send an unconscious message that they should be afraid of parts of themselves, that they have to be this to be able to get your love, or that if they are only this, they have to be this to be able to move about in the world. There's no flexibility, there's no complexity. I think that if you were to take that and we were to videotape those interactions between parent and child, we would see that the parent is inadvertently engendering, because of their own anxiety. And again, it's as parents, you have anxiety. I like Winnicott's notion that what is asked is not a great mom, but a good enough mom. And part of being a good enough mom is being a bad mom. Being screwing up, making mistakes, losing your cool. All of those things generate the sort of experiences that you can assist your child in moving through, that prepare them as they move about into the world. So.
All right, I like it. That's a great explanation. The narcissist, that's what we're talking about here. All right.
Talking about me?
Well, there you go. I think you just defined that by asking the question. All right, so you have a couple of other ideas that you brought into the studio today, and I didn't want to get through with this show unless we had just a moment to talk about some of those things.
Well, it's sort of connected with this notion that there was some recent study that your political affiliations may reflect some deeper unconscious personality characteristics, and the way in which individuals react to negative stimuli. And there was an interesting example that they show that they would simply show pictures of of a traffic accident or someone crying, and those who had a certain political affiliation would react much stronger. Their physiological reaction would show that they and those of more conservative ideology would react in a way that suggested that they scan the environment and are much more attuned to things that are fearful, to potential threats.
Okay.
And the whole point of this is that
it's scanning for those negatives in the environment, so that and then you really kind of overreact in some ways as well.
And just like when we talked about, on the surface, the narcissist in your office seems to be just a jerk. Well, the bleeding heart liberal or the mean conservative, underneath both of those skins are deep unconscious processes and a way to be able to mediate and reflexively deal with the things that are around you. So just like the narcissist, we are all governed by these unconscious processes. We are all sort of, our strings are being pulled by these neuronal networks. And some of these, you can surmise, these are deep-seated. These have a strong evolutionary history. They are, they speak from an ancient place. They are adaptive. And there's a way in which our culture has sort of has directed them and may exploit them in some ways, but they are there. We, just like the narcissist, we act in reflexive ways, and going back to that notion of mindfulness, our capacity to be able to allow ourselves to be moved in the ways that we have no choice, and maybe offer some possibility of reflection after the fact.
And examine. It's sort of the life examined, if you will, that you're really looking at what's happening in the environment and taking account of it as opposed to just being reactive to those kinds of things. All right, I like this. This has been a good show today. We talked about quite a bit of very interesting concepts and other ways that people act out in their lives. And hope you've enjoyed our conversation today. Dr. Dan Rose, I'm Michael Baltimore. We're right here on GotTherapy. You see it right in the back, the Dan Rose Show. You have your name on this as a subtitle, I might add. I don't know if that was a wound for your narcissism.
It said there have been many impingements,
Lots of impingements today.
Quigley's face tattoo. How do I deal with that?
Oh, please. Okay, there we go. We want to thank the crew for helping us out today as we began this show. We got things going, and it was worthwhile. And we thank you for tuning in. We're right here at Columbus State Television, Columbus State University, Columbus, Georgia. And you've been watching Got Therapy. So for Dan Rose, Michael Baltimore, we'll see you next time.
Toodles.